So the Torah reading we're about to do is not the traditional reading for Yom Kippur. And I mentioned this before. There are some changes that the Reform movement made, which may take away from some of the aspects of Jewish thought and Jewish life, but there's one that has just been a masterful addition to Jewish life, and that is that while most synagogues are reading a portion of Leviticus having to do with sacrifices on the morning of Yom Kippur, the passage we read is Atem Nitzavim, which has in it so many of the essential ideas and values of the Jewish tradition as interpreted by the rabbis. And I hope that it never gets old for me to continue to repeat to us. I say us because we all have to hear it over and over and over again. It comes from Torah. But it's the way the rabbis deal with it and interpret it and explain it and apply it that creates what you and I understand Judaism to be. Remember, the translation for the word Judaism, and when I say translation, I again remind you, one doesn't translate literally from one language to another. All of language is idiomatic. Concepts are explained by words. And when one translates from one language to another, it's not about the words one translates. It's about the images, the ideas, the concepts that one takes from one language and tries to find in another language. What are the ways in which people who speak that other language express the same idea and evoke the same image? When I say to you the translation of the word Judaism, what I mean by that is what the word Judaism means in English, in Hebrew is meant by the word Torah. It is not a literal translation, and yet it is the exact translation. What is meant by Jewish history by the word Torah is what you and I understand Judaism to be. And Judaism has evolved, Torah has evolved, and that is the greatness of the rabbinic tradition. But there are core values and core ideas which have remained constant, and it's the core ideas, the values that underpin Torah, which are based on Torah verses, but are shaped and fashioned in this marvelous way by a rabbinic tradition that we call Midrash, that is called Midrash. And so you come to Atem Nitzavim, and it has in it what seems like two giant separate ideas. And the ideas are always, we always do them in terms of the Midrash. And for me, it's no different than a text. Every Rosh Hashanah, we read the Akedah. Didn't we do that last year? Yes, we did, but it's a new year. We're new. And the Akedah is read all over again. There are two Midrashim which must be told every Yom Kippur that Atem Nitzavim is read. And it seems like they are two separate ideas. They're actually the same idea, marvelously intertwined by our tradition. And I would suggest this year, both of these ideas are reflected in that symbol. And I don't know if I speak for anybody in this room, I love this symbol more today than I loved it when we unveiled it on Rosh Hashanah. It keeps growing on me. And I see more and more in it. And it becomes more and more touching. And when I first saw it, and I liked it, and I wanted to use it as a symbol, it made me tear a little bit. I sit here now, I was sitting when I sat down for silent prayer, which is then followed by this fabulous poem, a rabbinic poem. I almost started just weeping when I look at that picture for what it means and what it says. And it's what the Jewish tradition understands Atem Nitzavim to be. So since we've done this before, I'm going to do it very quickly, and then I want to explain why I believe it is one idea in two different midrashim. This Sedra says the following. The two ideas are, number one, you can't overstate how important this is in rabbinic thought. Lo bashamayim hi. In my view, it is the single most important verse, most important line in the entire book of Deuteronomy. And Deuteronomy has some great lines, including Shema Yisrael. But to me, the quintessential line of Deuteronomy is Lo bashamayim hi, which means the Torah is not in heaven. The Torah is not in heaven. And you remember the drash. The drash, and this again, this is Talmudic. It's not in the Torah. But the rabbis created a whole, I was going to say story. For all I know, this is this is something that actually happened in some way. And I've told the story using different names. I've said Rav Moses and Akiva, and it's cute. The actual names in the Talmud are Eliezer and Joshua, two great rabbis of the Talmudic period. It doesn't matter who they are. There's a debate going on in the Talmud over how do you make an oven kosher for Passover. It could have been any issue at all, but this happens to be the issue. And they're debating, how do you make an oven kosher for Passover? And Eliezer finally gives his answer. And there's dissent in the room. People disagree. And they argue, no, that's not how you make it. This is how you make it. And Eliezer, oh, this is how. It goes back and forth, and ultimately, Eliezer says, if the law is as I say it is, you see that tree outside the window? Let the tree prove that I'm right. And in the Midrash, the tree gets up and jumps 10 cubits. And you know the Midrash, the rabbis answer, who learns anything from a tree? So Eliezer says, wait a minute then. You see the brook running by that tree? Let the brook prove that my interpretation is as I say. The law is as I say it is. And everybody looks out the window, and sure enough, the brook turns and goes upstream. And everybody says, who learns anything from a brook? Eliezer says, if the law is as I say it is, let the walls of this yeshiva prove I am right, and they start to fall. Another rabbi jumps up and says, rabbis would debate a point of law, you dare fall on them? And they remain slanted to this very day. You may see them when you visit Israel next time. And then Eliezer pulls out the stopper. And we can't hear this often enough. Of all the extraordinary things the Jewish tradition has to say about God and man's relationship to God, nothing comes close to the significance of the next part of this midrash. Because Eliezer says, if the law is as I say it is, let God, God's self, say so. Eliezer is calling upon God to validate his understanding, his interpretation of Torah. And the room is silent. And sure enough, a still small voice says, a bat kol, that means the voice of God. Wadia haken Eliezer. The law is as he says it is. That should end it, shouldn't it? In any other religious tradition, and it's always dangerous to say, in any other religious tradition. Here, in any other religious tradition. If God says so, the discussion is over. One moves on. In the Talmud, in the yeshiva, it's a different story. And Joshua says to God, who asked you? Butt out. Rabbis debate a point of law. You dare to intervene and interfere? And then, in great Jewish style, Joshua quotes Atem Nitzavim, the book of Deevray. He quotes what we're about to read. And Joshua quotes the verse. You wrote, Lo bashamayim, it is not in heaven. Lo bashamayim he. The Torah is not in heaven. It's not yours. You gave it to us, to human beings. Human beings with a Yetzer Tov and a Yetzer Hara. Human beings who have limited ability and fabulous ability to understand through discussion and debate where to go with life. You gave us intelligence, and then you gave us the Torah, and you said to us, work it out. It's no longer in heaven. You have no right to participate in the discussion anymore. And then you know the Midrash. The next day, a rabbi who was there, his name happened to be Nathan in the Talmud. Nathan happens to meet, as you are wont to do in Jerusalem, Elijah the prophet, who was born in heaven that day, came down for a little stroll. Nathan meets him. Nathan says to Elijah, Elijah, when God was told to butt out, when God was told the Torah is not in heaven, it's up to us now. What did God say? And Elijah says, God smiled and said, my children have won, my children have won. From now on, I'm out of it. And the Gaon of Vilna does a drash on the drash by using the Hebrew word for has won. It's the same word for eternity. And what the Gaon of Vilna says, as long as Jews are engaged in the study of and the working out of Torah, as long as that happens, the Torah lives forever, for eternity. And of all the things we, as modern 21st century Jews, should understand and walk away from any Jewish moment, is that that's the overarching Jewish understanding of God, God in this world, and what human beings are meant to do. We are meant to struggle with every difficult question in life, the complexity, the pain, the anguish, and the joy. It is not that we're only supposed to comfort the mourner. We are commanded to dance at the wedding, to be at the chuppah, to be at the bar mitzvah, to be at the brit milah. To do less is a violation of a certain trust the tradition has in us. And I say that because very often People will go miles when other people are in tragedy. And that's Milut Chasadim also. But somehow there isn't the same compelling need to also be at the simcha. And the tradition understands, if we're not there to dance, there is no simcha. If we're not there to praise bride and groom, there is no bride and groom. And if we don't bury our dead, if Jews don't go to a cemetery, pick up a shovel and shovel dirt and cover that grave, close that grave, we are missing the essential piece of our tradition, which says it's all about people. It's not about grave diggers, and it's not about caterers. It's always about us doing that, being involved in the most loving, kind, comforting, celebratory things in all the world. It's interesting, you know the line so well from Fiddler on the Roof. There's a song, L'Chayim. You know L'Chayim? Written by Sheldon Harnick. How do I know? Because I know Sheldon Harnick. Sheldon Harnick wrote a verse. I'll try to read up to it and then you finish the verse. Should I sing it or say it?
Sing it.
How well do you know me? Very fun. Good for you, Karen. God would like us to be joyful. Finish it.
Even when our hearts lie bleeding on the floor or something on the floor?
I want it exact.
On the floor?
God would like us to be joyful even when our hearts lie panting on the floor. How much more can we be joyful when there's really something to be joyful for? God would like us to be joyful even when our hearts lie panting on the floor. That is so Jewish. We've survived because of that mentality. And there is pain in life, and there's loss in life, and there's disappointment. And sometimes there are crazy things that have nothing, we didn't do, all we did was get up in the morning. And things happen, and they set us back, and one feels like, oh, it's all being conspired against us. There's some force in this universe that no matter what we do, it just knocks us down. There's no such force. Nature, the Jewish tradition tells us, is amoral. Nothing that ever happens by accident is a punishment, and even a parking space is not a reward. It is amazing how religious I get. I can't believe, if God wants this, there'll be a spot. There's no reward and there's no punishment by nature, says the Jewish tradition. The world follows its natural course. God made natural law, and then he put human beings on this world. The tradition says, in the poetry of the Jewish tradition, human beings have, over time, a capacity to understand this world and everything in it. DNA and the atomic structure and the weather and what creates hurricanes and earthquakes and tsunamis and what can be done with stem cell research and ways to light up cells inside human beings to discover the cells that need to be attacked. and then helping healthy cells learn how to attack the cells that are threatening life. And we're at the cutting. It's not, all of you who will be generations to come, whatever we think medicine is, we are not there yet. But where we are is spectacular. That's the way in which we deal with Mother Nature. Not by ever believing there's a God who's punishing. The thunder is not God's bowling, and it's not God's arguing. It's just thunder. And disease isn't any punishment from God. It's just human nature, natural law, yet untamed, unsubdued, to use the words of Genesis. But it will be. That's the messianic belief. Even when our hearts lie panting on the floor, we will celebrate. That's Torah. And the Jewish tradition says it's all about us. Incidentally, understand, anybody in this room has the right to interpret the Torah any way they want. Audrey, if you interpret the Torah, it becomes Audreyism. Good for you. But if you want to understand what the Jewish tradition has understood, then you're trying to understand how has the traditional Midrash evolved an understanding of life and a value system. And that's the second theme. The second theme in this Sedra is, and it's so interesting. It says in the Sedra, God has set before us good and evil and life and death. It's actually good and life and evil and death. But God has set before us good and evil and life and death. Therefore, what? Choose life. On the one hand, just on the face of it, it's a lovely idea. But when anybody who thinks about it for a moment, you have to ask yourself, why should we have to be told? Why would the Torah feel it's necessary to say, it's been set before you life and death, choose life, as if we wouldn't? We have to be told to choose good and life? And the answer is yes, we do. First of all, the Jew is obsessed with health and good for us. The greeting on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, what we mean when we say have a good year, have a healthy year. First thing we say, you should be healthy. I told you before, in Maimonides says the first thing a community must do is establish a hospital and universal health care. That's Maimonides. And so we all know that this is played out most in Yoma, the section that deals with, the Talmudic section that deals with Yom Kippur. And the question is asked, are you ever permitted to break the fast? The fast is the most well-known of all Jewish rituals. There are Jews who do no mitzvot of a ritual nature the entire year, but they will fast on Yom Kippur. And we know that because it was true about our grandparents and parents' generation. It's not so true today, but it used to be. This was an obsession to Jews. They would fast on Yom Kippur. And for many of us in this room, Yom Kippur and the fast are synonymous. And the question is, but what about a person who isn't well? What does a person do then? And you know the discussion, long discussion. And the question is, what happens if there are two doctors, because Jews always go for a, so there are two doctors. By the way, a second opinion is always good. They go two doctors, and one doctor says, you should fast. The other one says, no, you should eat. Between the doctor who says fast and the doctor who eats, what does the Jew do? The Jew eats. But what if it's 10 doctors who say you should fast, only one doctor says you should eat? 10-1 fast, then you eat. What if it's 100-1? 100 doctors say you can fast, only one says, I think you should eat. Then you eat. Now, what if all 100 doctors are Jewish from Harvard Medical School, and there's one non-Jewish doctor, I don't want to, not from Harvard, Yale. 10 Harvard, 10 Harvard, that's good because that weighs it too heavily, 1 to 10, 1 to 1. What, 10, you understand, 100 doctors from the best school say, no problem, fast. Then there's this one little doctor who says, nah, I think you should eat. 100-1, then you eat. But now, 100 Jewish doctors say, you can fast. One non-Jewish doctor, a non-Jewish doctor, only one. 100 Jewish doctors say fast. One Jewish doctor says, I think you should eat. Then you follow the non-Jews, then you eat. Now, and boy, this is not me. I just am playing with it. 100 Jewish doctors, all male, say, I finally found the one. 100 Jewish doctors, all male, said, you should fast. One Jewish doctor, a female, says, I think you should eat. In that case, of course, you, yes, the answer is always you eat. And then the last one is this. What if 100 doctors say, you're fine, you should fast. 100 doctors say you should fast. Not a single doctor you can find says you should eat. Not a one. But you say to yourself, I don't feel so good. I think I should eat. 100 doctors say fast. You say, I think I should eat. Then you eat. Yes. And we know the answer. Whether I get the question right or not, we know the answer. The answer always is you eat. Why? Tradition says, better you should break the fast this year and be around for all the Yom Kippurs to come because you've protected your health. And the people in this room, there are people in this room who have protected our health. The tradition has a respect and a regard, and I mean this seriously, has nothing to do with money. You know the old Jewish joke where three mothers are talking about what their kids do, and one says, oh, my son's a doctor, and the other says, oh, my son's a lawyer, and the third mother says, well, my son's a rabbi, and the two other women say, not a job for a nice Jewish boy, because it was about money. In the text and in the tradition of Judaism, it has nothing to do with money. It has to do with the fact that we see the rofei, the healer, the physician, the doctor. And when I say the word doctor, I am now talking about anyone in this room who is any way involved in the medical world, the medical profession. Doctors, nurses, aides, social workers, psychiatrists, anybody who deals with the well-being, physical or mental, of a human being, they merit the name Rofei. They are healers. And every single one of you in this room who is in any way involved in healing, in taking care of people, kol hakavod to you. You are doing God's work. And if you've helped me and you're in this room, you know how grateful I am. But anyone who has been cared for by a Rofei with heart and skill has been touched by the hand of God. And that's how the Jewish tradition understands it. And I'm suggesting the two are the same. In each instance, people are making choices for life. There are ways in which we can just be distracted, or we can become selfish, or we can become scared. And for any one of those reasons, we don't do enough to protect ourselves and more, others we love. The reason I say that the Torah and this picture are the same is because whatever story you have that picture represents, that picture represents a choice. It was a choice for the person on the top to lay a hand on the person below. And it was a choice of the person below to take the hand that's on top. This is loving kindness. This is chesed. This is comfort. This is love. This is, it is not good for any person to be alone. We will never leave someone we love or know alone. Life can be overwhelming. It's never overwhelming if there's someone holding our hand. This is what is meant by choose life. It's obvious we all want to live. But when it said, you've got a choice, it says to us. The choice is, are you going to choose life? If so, your hand will always find the other hand. And when you feel the other hand, you'll always take it. That is the message of Atem Nitzavim. And the rabbis have chosen, our rabbis have chosen, this Torah reading as a message for Yom Kippur. Today is the last day of the first 10 days of the year. We begin a year anew together. And as we do, our rabbis ask us, take responsibility, choose life. It's not about heaven. It's not about a miracle from heaven. There are no miracles from heaven. Life is a miracle. Human beings are miraculous. But the way miracles are affected in this world is that somebody takes someone else's hand. And everyone in this room I am in awe of the loveliness in this room. And I have been held by so many of you. And I watch how you hold so many whom you love with devotion, caring, doing the best you can. It's never perfect. But if a human being gets up in the morning and understands there's an opportunity to choose life by holding someone else close, then life is a miracle. As we read Sedra Tem Nitzavim, I suggest it's in that spirit and mood that we read the Sedra on this Yom Kippur, and we all say,
We would be pleased to send a complimentary DVD of this program to anyone who wishes to support JBS, the Jewish Broadcasting Service, with a tax-deductible gift of $36, double chai or more, to the nonprofit organization Jewish Education in Media. Simply visit the JBS homepage and click on the Donate button to make a donation by PayPal or your credit card. And please indicate the program for which you would like a DVD. Or you can send your tax-deductible check made out to Jem, Post Office Box 180, Riverdale Station, Bronx, New York 10471. And again, please remember to indicate which program you would like to receive with our compliments. And we thank you for your kind support.